Hi everyone, I'm Joel Sutherland, your host for today's NAF Tonight program. Thanks for clicking in. You know, for our first several installments, we've always tried to provide you the greatest update, the most comprehensive update we can with everything that's going on with our foundation. We'd like to say thank you to members of our community that have been doing some new things. And we also like to try to provide some new information, things that we think some of you, if not all of you, might be interested in. So with that, let's get started. My first guest today has been a friend of the Foundation's for nearly 20 years. And we're going to talk about a program that we call Qualified Charitable Distribution. So at this time, please welcome to the show our financial planner for almost 20 years, Mr. David Schwant. David, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Joe. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's the whole aspect of qualified charitable distributions, easy for me to say, right? It's something that we've been looking at, you know, as far as the development team goes, and we think that this is something that our community would really like to learn more about. So thanks for being with us today. So tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, happy to. You know, when Congress passes tax legislation, there's multiple motivations. The primary one, of course, is raising revenue. But there's also a desire by Congress to help motivate taxpayer behavior. And that's where the charitable giving tax advantages, that legislation comes into being. It's to empower and motivate taxpayers to be charitably minded. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where we find the provisions for qualified charitable distributions. This legislation has not been around all that long, but it's been improved with subsequent iterations after its first passage.
Gotcha. Now, is that something where, you know, the donor can also take a charitable gift deduction at that time?
Well, you know, let me spell out some things here.
Yeah.
Qualified charitable distributions allow the taxpayer to take pre-tax money from retirement plan accounts of most types, not all types, mm-hmm. and move it directly to what's called a 501c3 charitable organization.
And if I may, when you're talking about 401ks, IRAs, when you talk about pre-tax?
And some exceptions are what are called SEP plans or simple plans.
Sure.
But other than that, and I'm going to use the term IRA to sort of refer to all of the plans where this is approved. And so the taxpayer has to request directly of the plan administrator mm-hmm. to send X amount of money directly to the charitable organization. It can't come to the taxpayer and then that person gives it to the charity. Mm-hmm. That does create a taxable event for the donor. Now, you have to be age 70 and a half to do this.
All right.
And if the taxpayer is 70 and a half or older, they can actually pass to a charitable org up to $100,000 a year, bypass the pent-up income tax on that money, mm-hmm. but, and here's the answer to your question, cannot also take a charitable deduction. That's called double dipping by the IRS. It's frowned upon.
They won't let that happen.
Yep.
All right.
Now, if there's a joint filing of the tax return and the spouse is also over age 70 and a half, mm-hmm. he or she can also do this up to $100,000 a year.
Gotcha.
Now, where we see this coming into play quite a bit is when people have reached the age where they have to take a required minimum distribution from their IRA account.
And what age is that, David?
Well, it used to be 70 and a half, but now it's 73.
Okay.
And when they do that, you know, the money's being forced out to them because the IRS says, we've given you decades of tax deferral. It's time to collect some taxes on this money.
Sure.
But rather than taking that required distribution or RMD, mm-hmm. the client, the taxpayer can, again, direct that the plan administrator send that RMD directly to the charity.
And in this instance, the National Taxi Foundation.
The National Taxi Foundation. And,
mm-hmm.
and so what that does is it fulfills the RMD requirement, but avoids the tax on that RMD.
Gotcha.
People that are doing this generally aren't real pleased that they're being forced to take the money because they don't need it.
Right.
And this is a great way to satisfy their charitable intent and get a great tax advantage for doing so.
Outstanding. So if I could summarize it, if you're age 70 and a half, you can you can direct funds pre-tax to, in this instance, the National Ataxia Foundation in support of our vision and our mission. At age 73, it's a mandatory distribution that you have to take, and there would be a tax event along with that, okay? But once again, you can put that towards the National Ataxia Foundation, and that's, once again, that's a deduction then, because it's not, it's income you don't need. I guess the other important point is at age 73, if you don't need these funds as a part of your everyday living, it's a great way to avoid the tax event by donating to the National Ataxia Foundation.
And actually mathematically somewhat more favorable to avoid the tax than to get a deduction.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's really good. I'm glad we've got this information out to our community, David. And for more information, you can reach out to the National Ataxia Foundation if you have some specific questions. And by all means, David, we'll probably be reaching back to you with some questions as we get them. But thanks so much for being with us today. It's a great opportunity for those who are in that age bracket of 70 and a half or 73 years of age to help us in our mission, to help support our vision, and maybe even avoid paying some tax.
There you go.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for being with us today, David.
Happy to be here, sir.
When we return, we'll have the Chief Executive Officer of the National Ataxia Foundation, Andrew Rosen. Stay tuned. Welcome back to NAF Tonight. My next guest has really been on the run ever since we finished our last NAF Tonight production back in March. Been a very busy man. Things have been so dynamic in the NAF community. He's been on the run. We're just glad that he's been able to find some time to maybe try to catch his breath and spend a little time with us. Please welcome to the show the Chief Executive Officer of the National Ataxia Foundation, Mr. Andrew Rosen. Andrew, hey, you made it.
Good to see you, Joel.
I'll tell you, it's
Man, it's been a marathon.
it's nice to see you just sitting in one spot for a moment.
Yeah, it's good to be across the finish line here on the show tonight.
There you go. It's been wild. It's been good and busy, and I know our community would love to hear some of the highlights over the last 5-6 months.
Yeah, there's been a ton going on. It has been a busy year for NAF. Just a few things that have happened even recently that I want to talk for a minute about. We just came back from our first ever Ataxia Support Group Leader Summit. So what did we do? We brought our support group leaders from around the country together in Orlando, Florida at the Carib Royale, kind of a sneak preview for where our annual Ataxia conference will be next year. Brought them all together and was able to let them learn from each other, share kind of best practices, tips and tricks, get to know each other, lean on each other a little bit. And it was our chance to really just say thank you. This is an extraordinary group of people. Their whole goal is to simply try to make the lives of their local Ataxians a little bit better. Nice. And it was a terrific couple days in Orlando. And again, thank you to that group.
Yeah, it's always good getting people
it sure
out
is.
of their homes and getting to meet face to face whenever possible. And it was a great summit.
Absolutely, and we look forward to doing it maybe every other year going forward.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
outstanding.
So another thing that we want to talk about, as you all know, it's our kind of our annual research drive time of year here
Big time.
at NAF. So much happening in the ataxia research world, but specifically in terms of the annual grants that we distribute to ataxia researchers around the world, we've had a record number of ataxia researchers reach out with interest in receiving a grant. So we call those letters of intent. 55% more letters of intent this year than last year. To me, that means that there's just more interest in ataxia research happening, and it's really exciting. And it's why the gifts that we receive from our community for our research drive are so critically important.
Outstanding.
And so that's another really exciting thing that's happening. And then the last thing I want to talk about a little bit is what a year 2023 has been in terms of drug development in the ataxias. Right. As many of you know, the first ever drug approved for ataxia happened earlier this year in Friedreich's ataxia with Skyclarys. Troriluzole is in the FDA process, and there's more to come on that front. But at the same time, and this is drug development, Joel, I think we have to understand that that while the trend line is certainly going up, there are going to be some ups and downs in that. At the same time, we've had trials paused or stopped this year for various reasons as well. And that is just the nature of rare disease drug development. And I think it's something that we all have to understand and get used to. The exciting part is there's just so much more to come in the years ahead.
I think the important piece for our community to realize is that, it wasn't that long ago where these things weren't happening.
No.
I mean, the fact is, the Ataxia community is now in the game, so to speak.
Absolutely.
We have industry partners, we have clinical trials taking place. There's so much going on, and it wasn't that long ago that these things weren't happening.
That's right.
And they're moving quick now.
We talk to new pharmaceutical companies, I bet at least once or twice a quarter, who are interested in learning more about what the space looks like. There are acquisitions, there are mergers and acquisitions from a business standpoint for billions of dollars for these companies that are developing treatments for ataxia. That is all really good news for what the future holds in terms of treatment development.
No, that's outstanding. And it's, for even for our community to realize that it's their involvement with the foundation, getting involved with clinical trials, doing the genetic testing. We as a community, and we say we, we is not the National Ataxia Fund. We isn't the department of the development department. We truly are our principal investigators, our clinicians, our coordinators, those living with ataxia, caregivers, relatives, family, friends. I mean, we are all seeing some great advantages.
There's never been a better time to get involved
than
there is now.
All right, Andrew, let's take some time right now just to say thank you to some of the the new folks that have stepped up with this year and have really done a nice job in helping us raise funds and awareness and drive some energy into our community. And first up, I'd just like to give a tip of the cap to Dawn and Paula Fay, along with Christy Taylor, Daniel Graven, Howard Silverman, and Mary Grisolano. Our folks out in Las Vegas have done some great things, and I know they're going to really build on that moving into next year.
I want to shout out to Sue Moore. Sue and her team led the first ever Central Ohio Walk and Roll this fall. It was a terrific event. Joel, they raised more than $20,000. I think you know a lot about walk and rolls. You know that that's a big number for a first-time walk and roll, and I know they're already planning on an even bigger event next year. So thanks to Sue and her team.
Yeah, our new walk and rolls just did a wonderful job this year for sure. And Andrew, in Salt Lake City this year, the ladies there, Andrea Baer, Lisa Ord, Nancy Willard, and Suzanne Martin put together something called Artisans for Ataxia, which was an online art auction that really took off. And ladies, you can trust that we're going to want to do that again next year. So thank you.
Another walk and roll I want to call out, the San Diego Walk and Roll. Pamela Kahn, who is a force of nature, and her team put together, kind of reinvigorated a San Diego walk that hadn't been active in many years. I had the privilege of being there, Joel, on that beautiful Saturday morning. There was a live band, there was vendors. It was a terrific first event, and Pamela is one of those people that has 110 ideas already for next year and how to make it better. So thanks to her.
Yeah, no, that's great. When I attended the support group summit, I had the opportunity to meet both Brenda and Jeremy Kavanaugh from Lower Michigan, who had their first walk and roll this year. Thank you both so much for what you did. I know there's a lot of energy, and I really enjoyed meeting them down in Orlando. I know that they have big plans for next year as well. Greg Hulbert reached out to me earlier this year while he was in Spain. I got an email from him one day, and he said, Joel, I'm riding my bike from Barcelona to Paris. How can we turn this into a fundraising event? And I think we turned it around in about 24 hours. We got a nice fundraising page up for him. And Mike, I should say Greg, did that for a member of his family that lives with ataxia, and he did just a wonderful job with that.
That's amazing. I'm a bit of a cyclist myself, and riding from Barcelona to Paris is no trivial task. So thanks to Greg. I want a kind of a special call out to Mike DeRosa. Mike has been a supporter of NAF for many years. He always does. He exercise. He's kind of in exercise. Does sort of challenging physical events to raise money and awareness of ataxia. This year he chose to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania and Africa to raise again awareness and money. An NAF staff member, Tanoa Tome, went with him to record it all on video, etc. They had an amazing trip, and that's a big deal. So again, thanks to Mike and to Noah for that.
Man, I'll tell you what, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, that's no joke.
No joke.
That's no joke. And speaking of jokes, we had 4 comedy shows take place this year and that really brought some energy to the community. We had one here in Minneapolis. John Dwyer really pulled that together here. Up in Boston, the Massachusetts support group with John and Dana Morrow taking the lead on that. Dick Manley and his wife Robin had a nice comedy show down in Atlanta. And then David Brunert, his wife Holly, and brother Doug really pulled together a nice event in Houston this year. So I think there's a lot of energy for more comedy shows next year. So we should have some laughs coming next year.
Joel, I was at the Minneapolis event,
yeah.
and there's something about, listen, we all know ataxia is a serious thing. Yeah. There's something about laughing and laughter and having a good time together that's just a wonderful tonic. And I think you've hit on something that really can grow for us here. So thanks to the people that kind of kicked off this campaign.
Exactly. You know, as I mentioned, you know, there are a lot of folks that do a lot for us each year, and really we don't have time to say thank you to all of you, but trust that we appreciate all of your efforts, and we look forward to working with you on the similar events from this year, or maybe there's something else you want to do in your community, but we're here to help, and by all means, a special thanks to all of you. Also, if you look back on today's program, I just want to remind you of the nice presentation that Mr. David Schwant presented on our qualified charitable distributions. Give a look at that, see if we can answer any questions for you, and by all means, please reach out to us at any time here at the National Ataxia Foundation. So, Andrew, thanks for being with me today, and thank all of you for clicking in. Thanks for stepping in or taking a look at this installment of NAF Tonight. Thanks so much. Happy holidays.